Before we get started today, I want to say thank you for every single like, comment, recommendation, and a very special thank you to my listener support group. If you like what we do here at Off the Deep End Podcast, please consider checking out the listener support tab on our channel's anchor link. Without you, we would not be able to continue the great work we're doing with these conversations, breaking down boundaries and helping heal each other by sharing our stories, our trials, our tribulations, and how we process them. Let's jump straight into this episode. All right, what's happening, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Off the Deep End Podcast. As always, I'm your not so broken anymore host, Eddie, and I'm joined today by two of our first responders slash heroes who don't wear blue. So thank you so much for joining me, Miss Maghan and Mr. Jack. Thank you for coming back, man. I appreciate your time.
Of course.
Yeah.
Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely, dude. So what's new?
Well, define new. There's been lots of things changing, shifting around.
Yeah.
Talking personal life, world of EMS.
All of it, man.
All of the above.
The new chain.
Well, the new chain that came in months ago, but I just don't wear it because I don't know. I don't like to wear necklaces very often.
Especially at work.
Especially at work, yeah. You had a feisty psych patient that likes to grab those, and I don't want to lose them.
Oh God.
So
they get handsy.
They get handsy. Okay. Well, I imagine I've heard just a couple stories, and I was like, oh my God, what a mess.
Just last night, I got my arm pet.
Yeah. Just
because I have tattoos. They're like, oh, nice. And I'm like, leave me alone. Don't touch me.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine. So I was thinking about a couple different career paths, and I was like, maybe EMT, and I decided against it because of the stories that I've heard alone. And I was like, hell no, definitely not going to be for me.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, it's fun. It's interesting. I like the work. It's stuff like, it's something new every day, kind of.
It's just all about why you do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really more than anything.
Well, I think that's a good
Otherwise,
place to start,
you'll stop showing up.
Why do you do it? Like, because everyone has their own reasons for things. I work on elevators and escalators because I heard it was a good idea, so I tried it, and I've been doing it for 6 years.
Yeah. It's kind of how it goes.
Tell me how it goes.
Yeah.
I mean, I got into it because my dad did it. My dad was a firefighter and EMT, so I kind of heard stories about his days at work, and I was interested in it. So I figured, why not give it a go? I'm not happy where I'm at, and then it was a good fit for me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What made were you just done with that job that you were at previously?
Well, so I worked my way up at a grocery store. That was my first job. I learned all the departments. I was managing, but I wasn't really happy there. And then I was working insurance for a while, just kind of in between gigs. COVID happened, and I was the most miserable I've ever been at work. So I needed a change, and hearing about my dad's day at work piqued my interest. So I figured, why not? There's not really any better time. Just change it up. Yep.
Yeah. I've always been the same way when it comes to new things. If something just like even triggers my curiosity even a little bit, I make a decision really quickly whether I want to pursue it or not. And if I don't, I definitely don't. But if I do, I just I go in all the way, balls to the wall. Why not? Right.
Just trust your gut.
Trust your gut. Yeah.
It doesn't
absolutely.
lie.
So what was it like when you first started? Because I know that it's different. So for some people, it's a culture shock when you go into a first responder or just dealing with the general public at all. Has been definitely a culture shock for me. And like previously, my general public was just people on the ship with me. And then now I'm dealing with God knows what on every single contract that my unnamed elevator company has. So
much, yeah.
It's kind of how it goes. I grew up working with the public. I babysat always, so you're dealing with families and ornery kids. But then managing in a grocery store, like you step in. People get very passionate about their groceries, to put it nicely. So I dealt with all of that. So it's nothing new. Hearing about my dad's days, like I kind of knew what I was getting into. And I didn't go to college. So, and growing up, I always kind of wanted to get in healthcare. Like I was interested in that, helping people, actually going to work and having a purpose, not just like, oh, yep, another day at work doing this or that. Like there was actually a reason to go. And that helped. So my program, I didn't go to college like a lot of people do for EMS. I found a company that actually did on the job. So they had their own schooling that you got paid to go to, and then we also did ride-alongs every single week. So I would have 4 days in the classroom cramming every single body system into your brain, and then a ride-along each week. So it was an actual shift. So that helped kind of level your expectations of what you're getting into while you're learning.
I love that. I think on-the-job training is essential.
Yeah.
It's one thing that I realized that as a country, we're not really doing too much of anymore. When I was growing up, I was really enjoying welding.
Yeah.
In welding in shop class, working with band saws, every single tool I could, and just learning new things. I don't think we're meant in life to stay in a comfort zone, because safety zone and comfort zones are dead zones. You're never going to grow. And I think you really dialed it in. Having purpose. Having purpose is essential. What made you want to get into EMT?
I was just kind of bored.
Yeah.
You know, like I'd worked basic 9 to 5 kind of gigs, before, like, running a supplement store, being a mechanic, working in a lumber yard, just kind of basic normal dude bullshit. And then, COVID happened and I wasn't at work for a long time, just kind of working on like my own mental. And I kind of got to the same point that she did, where I was like, I am tired of not having a purpose. And then, looking back at my life, everything that I've done in some way, shape, or form has been in service of others. So I was like, okay, what's the best way that I can serve other people in my community? And I was like, oh, fire EMS. Looking at fire, I was like, God damn, that's a lot. Like getting in, it's like a 3-year process or some shit. So it's like, okay, what's a stepping point? And then, looking at PD, and I was like, political climate, maybe not. And then EMS was just kind of like, hi, like this little redheaded stepchild that just kind of handles the stuff in between everybody. And I was like, all right, you know what, I can fuck with that.
Yeah.
So I just kind of jumped in, hoping to make somebody's day better.
Did you get what you expected?
Yes and no.
Yes and no. Yes and no. Elaborate.
You get pretty much every shift, you have an unknown percentage of an opportunity to save somebody's life. But more often, I'd say probably 95% of the time, you're taking grandma home. Or
it's also because we work in private.
We work in private, yeah. So we're not first on scene. What happens is a hospital calls us and says, hey, this person needs to go either to another hospital for a higher level of care, or this, psych transport, this psych person needs to go to a psych facility, or grandma needs to go back home, but she can't go by herself or by a cabulance, which is the step down from ambulance before Uber. And then they're like, yeah, well, so grandma has to go by ambulance, so you guys come pick her up and take her back to her house.
They need oxygen. They just can't ambulate on their own.
Yeah, ambulate is walking.
Okay, I was about to say, oh,
sorry.
And it begins all the stuff I don't know.
There's gonna be acronyms and lingo.
Drop them all. Just please explain it, because I definitely do not understand.
Yeah. But. So there's pretty much, like, within our company, there's 3 different sections of ambulance. There's the IFT cars, BLS, IFT.
Interfacility transports.
Yeah, interfacility, basic life support. So, I mean, I call it boring life support because we really don't do a whole lot. Sometimes you get some fun calls. Like the two of us, we've had pediatric calls where kids are in respiratory failure.
Oh boy.
RSV is big.
RSV is a huge one.
What app do you guys use to receive calls? Because I know PulsePoint. I use PulsePoint.
Yeah, we use Logis. It's some sort of I don't know. It's a dispatching app. So our dispatchers have control over it. Well, they adapted it.
It was, I don't remember what it was for, but it was for something else, and they adapted it to work for our company.
For us, yeah.
Do you think it works pretty good?
No. Honestly, it's
definitely could improve.
It could improve a lot.
Just because it's not built for EMS.
No. So it's not the greatest at navigation. Communication is iffy on it, but it's really simple, straightforward, and it gets the job done. So realistically, it doesn't need to be the most perfect system. Just once you figure out how to use it, then you can work around it. But getting into it, like my first couple of weeks, I was like, what is on my phone right now? And then, you kind of you figure it out as you go. But, so yeah, we use that. So we'll get the call. There's these horrible little tones. It's just
that you hear in your dreams.
But yeah, they don't stop until you accept the call. So like, yeah, you wake up in the middle of the night hearing those sometimes when you're just driving. You'll just like hear them. You're like, what the? Oh,
Or the once in a blue moon that you have station time and you're trying to squeeze a nap in and you wake up and you're like, where is that? Oh, no, that was just in my brain.
Yep.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I still have dreams about so you blow whistles over the 1MC
Yeah.
on aircraft carriers and on all naval ships
Mm-hmm.
to signal there's a man overboard.
Mm-hmm.
And I still hear it all the time.
Yep.
If I hear a whistle, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
what are you going on? Run! Like I remember times where I'd jump out of, so I was on the top rack, so
Yeah.
there's 3 levels. So I'll jump out, hit the ground, grab. I had my shoes ready to go,
Yeah.
called my light bright shoes because they
There
were
you
like
go.
Nike, but they were like neon
yeah.
green. So I throw them on and I'd sprint as fast. They started telling us to wear boots, but I'd
Yeah.
put those on and I'd sprint, and I'd have to step wide enough so my boot
Mhm.
laces that are untied don't get hit. Ducking, shoving people out of my way,
Yeah.
ducking underneath the
tiny
jets
little
because they
narrows,
used to shove all the jets in the hangar bay at nighttime.
Yeah.
I get pissed off. Bam, getting hit in the head with one of them. Run to the starboard boat deck, start undoing the straps.
Yeah.
Get told to. I'm supposed to be wearing a life jacket. Put on a life jacket, and
Yeah.
then because it's got a chem light and all this stuff on it,
Mhm.
right? And then get the boat ready, and then we splash out the boat, and whatever happens, whoever
Yeah.
gets whoever's the most competent.
Mhm.
It's really that, and you have to be a humble motherfucker with this one.
For sure.
Whoever's most competent is the
Mhm.
person driving across the open ocean
That makes sense.
to find somebody,
Yeah.
not the person who gets there first.
No.
Because if it was, I'd be driving every time.
That's
But I think we all got to play a huge role. Do you find that
For sure.
working in a partnership on an EMT rig is essential, or
Yes.
could it possibly be done
Absolutely.
alone? Because some movies
No shot.
and TV shows portray, Hollywood stuff.
Mhm.
They water down
Mhm.
the importance of teamwork sometimes.
Mhm.
What do you think about that?
No, teamwork is absolutely essential.
The
You're-
partner that you get paired with honestly will make or break your entire career.
Yeah.
Because it's your day in and day out. If you don't have a good partner that you feel that you can trust
Mhm.
and rely on, especially with driving U code or competent enough to take care of these
Mhm.
sick people,
Mhm.
then you will burn out
Yeah.
faster than you got in.
So driving code, just recap, is driving lights and sirens, which is something that we only do in the most critical of situations.
Mhm.
If we don't have to drive code, we won't. It's fun, it's exciting, but there is a massive amount of liability and danger that comes with driving code. It gives you no legal protections. So if you crash a rig, if you blow a red light and kill a family of 5, it's all on you.
If someone
So-
rear ends you, it's still your
It's
fault.
still your fault because you're driving code.
I
So
see. Is it the
gives-
same way? Is that just for privatized,
That's
Mhm.
or is
only-
that so?
that
And
is
for
across
cops as
the
well?
board. Yep.
Yep.
That is
Yeah.
across the board. So lights and sirens, realistically, the goal of driving lights and sirens isn't to go fast. It's to be smooth and to get to your destination without stops.
Mm.
So obviously, depending upon the patient, yeah, you go fast. You
Yeah.
know, like if my patient in the back, all of a sudden his heart slows down to 10 beats per minute, yeah, I'm going to pound. Like I'm flooring it. But that's a very, very, very rare situation. More often than not, you're using lights and sirens to get traffic out of your way, to not have to stop completely at stoplights. You still do, because if you blow
gotta
through
yield.
stoplights, you get T-boned. But
Especially people that are like deer in the headlights or
Yeah.
they hesitate. Like people they just don't know what to do. They forget how to drive when
Mhm.
you're passing by them. I've had people stop in an intersection that I'm coming up to and then cut me off as I'm about
Yeah.
to go through. And that's happened many times here.
Oh my goodness, what a
Yeah.
mess!
They just forget
it's,
how to
it's a lot.
people.
Yeah.
Is it difficult to work on somebody? Because I know we don't call it operating on somebody or
Mhm.
whatever, but working on somebody in the back of the
Yes.
rig while somebody's driving recklessly in
Very.
the front.
Very.
So
Yeah.
you have to also be aware that your partner is back there, correct?
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay.
And you're not strapped in more often than not. Like you're just kind of back there free balling it, or your patient is buckled to hell. Like they've got
5.
5 seatbelts, if not wrist restraints and foot restraints as well, depending upon if they're ITA'd or not, which is involuntary hold. So they're arrested or they were being combative in the hospital and they filled out a form that says, "Hi, this person doesn't have access to their arms and legs."
Or they're like gravely disabled. They can't take care of themselves.
Yeah.
So just pretty much law enforcement got involved and said, hey,
Yeah.
you're not stable.
Yeah.
You need some time to be
Yeah.
taken care of.
Yes. And
So-
we're seeing a lot of that in this region. I
Mhm.
know that it can be extremely detrimental to your positive outlook on the job.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's hard to find purpose.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's, or to recognize that you're making a difference,
Mhm.
which is, I would say, more of a subconscious tier of helping others in life.
For sure.
Like in general, like, are you actually fulfilling that goal?
Yeah.
Normally you just try, and whatever happens, happens.
Yep.
If you're truly selfless. Have there been any times where, you know, it's a frustrating or difficult call where you start asking, why the hell did I sign up to start doing this?
Pretty much daily.
Pretty much daily.
And honestly, it's not the difficult calls that you get those on. It's the routine. It's the, hi, this is your 5th grandma tonight that needs to go back to her house.
And it's not even just that. It's the state of people's homes that you see living in. They don't know how to take care of themselves, or they can't afford it. They're just living in filth. No one's taking care of them. They're not taking care of themselves. People are very neglectful. And it's really hard to see that, especially as you get older too. A lot of the like adult family homes, nursing homes, assisted living, they're not taken care of as well as you would want your own family taken care of. Because especially when they're old and confused, dementia is very common. The patient can't advocate for themselves. So we need to, part of our job is being that advocate. I've had to call and formal complaints on facilities for neglecting their patients just because they're confused. They don't know what's going on, so they can't advocate.
Yeah, they can't say, hi, I need to use the bathroom, or I just wet myself. Can you change my sheets?
Yeah, they sit in that.
And then they sit in their own piss and shit for weeks.
It's not like you can't smell it, like, for weeks.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, they can smell it. They know what's happening. They just don't care.
You know, I think there's a term for that. It's where you run out empathy. It's like an empathy burnout, or
I don't know. I mean, other than psychopathy, but that's not exactly what we're looking at.
We're dealing with just people being assholes, kind of.
Yeah,
that sucks.
It does. That's probably the most tiring part about it.
And that's pretty regularly that you're running into these issues. So it's
every day.
So you think that when families make have a older family member make a transition into general care or any facility that's going to be taking care of their elderly, they're just passing them off, and they're not doing these checks. You said weeks, right? If family can never visit within those weeks, they would have smelt and observed those issues and freaked the fuck out.
Yep.
But they haven't even shown up. So usually they're just passing off the elderly because they don't want to deal with it, and they're being treated worse than even just being forgot. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
or they are
really
just forgotten.
harsh reality to come across. Yeah, or like she just said, you'll come across people who are living by themselves in horrible conditions. When was the last time your family member came to check on you? Oh, it's been months. Whew. Okay, I got you.
Oof, that can be super irritating.
It's
Yeah.
It's real. It's real.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What a mess.
Yeah.
What is one of the other issues, before we get into the crazy nitty gritty stuff, what are some of the other issues that you've observed without raising, without directing yourself to be, to have any retribution or whatever?
Yeah. I'd say, it's kind of along the same lines, but hospital staff as well will do similar things where they'll pay more attention to some patients than others. You'll go to get report, and they're like, I don't know, I got on shift at 6 and I haven't talked to them. It's like 9:30. And you're like, does this person not matter to you?
Yeah. And those are cases where it's definitely not for lack of time, because they might be doing something else.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Not to mention its priorities. If your patient is just chilling, they're keeping to themselves, they're quiet, they're just waiting patiently, as you should.
Yeah.
You get forgotten because they've got a bunch of things going on.
Yeah.
The healthcare system is broken, and it is struggling, and it's everywhere is understaffed.
Yeah.
So if you're not speaking up, you're going to get pushed off.
Which sucks.
I've definitely experienced that personally. I've been in an ER after a car accident, I was sitting there for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Like I eventually the pain meds started to run off, and I started yelling at the door, help, help! I just kept yelling it as fast and as often as loud as possible until people came rushing in.
Yeah.
And I said, "Can I go home now?" Like, we're keeping you here to monitor you. I said, "You're not monitoring me. No one's monitoring me."
Right. Yeah.
I said, "Watch this. Watch this." And I put the finger thing back on. It was beeping already. I just pulled it off like that. Yeah, like they couldn't read a pulse, and no one came in there. So I just wanted to do a social experiment in the time, but I was all fucked up off. I think it was Dilaudid.
Dilaudid.
Yes, Dilaudid. Some drug that they put in me. I don't know. I don't take narcotics. But it hit me like a ton of bricks after the car accident.
Yeah, it does that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I just had the gigs and everything was good.
Yep.
You know, I can definitely understand how hospital staff have been severely understaffed. You know, we're dealing with a nationwide understaffing issue, and I know a lot of people point fingers at different things, but there's two things that really stand out to me. One, morale. People will, 100%. If you create a place where people want to be, they will normally stay or come or flock there.
For sure.
You know, think about the gyms. People flock there.
Yeah.
It's nothing fun about working out.
No.
But people flock there.
Yeah.
Because it boosts your morale.
Exactly.
Bars, Liquid Courage, you know, boosts your morale. Going to a music festival boosts your morale. Exactly. There's a lot of different ways, you know, carnivals.
Yeah.
Festivals.
Exactly.
These things boost your morale. I think it's essential as leaders in the industries, and as also subordinates of people that are telling us what can I do better to make you all stay? I don't pulling out their own hair trying to find staffing. Make an environment where people enjoy it and want to thrive.
Exactly.
So, I think that's a huge problem that's been getting a lot worse within the last few years is loyalty. No one will stay at companies because companies work so hard, like sign-on bonuses, like all the incentive to come to work, but they lose that momentum with keeping you there.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing that you see generational differences, like grandparents, they stayed at their jobs for 30, 40 years. That's unheard of these days because it's always, well, you're treating me like crap. I can go get treated better here. Doesn't turn out so well, so they go to the next place and the next place. And I think that's not entirely bad. Like, if you're not happy somewhere, don't stay there. But I think from a company standpoint, that's getting lost within the last few years.
Definitely. I can agree with that. I know that my wife's mom has been at the same job for 20 years, you know, through thick and thin, through the economic issues, and she's still there, and they treat her well, to my knowledge. But like other companies, I'll see a new person every time I walk in the door.
Yep.
You know, we both know spots. It's like that. Yeah. It's really interesting because people are demanding their worth at the same time. You know, is your immediate supervisor creating that? Have you guys had experience with poor leadership in the field that you're in?
Yes.
Do you think there's what is a way that can improve? You know, because a lot of people don't know that they're necessarily messing up or they're making mistakes. I was very boisterous in the military when my leaders were creating spirals into inefficiency.
Yeah.
What things that can your crew or the crews that you worked with in the past even improve on?
I think learning to listen, because you know you can say communication all day long, but the reality of it is the people on the ground, they communicate. I can promise you just about everybody, even if they're new, has sent or called at least once to a manager and said, hey, this is fucked up. Can we fix this?
What they need is to be receptive and actually have their actions match their words.
So say, yeah, we'll get right on that. Never happens.
Every time I've heard get right on it, I've usually
that's
like the opposite. That's like the biggest one of my favorite lies out there, because like, as soon as they say it, liar.
Go fuck yourself.
You're a liar.
Like, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah. You're laughing over there. It happened to you too, Jackson. Yes, it is what it is.
That's the biggest thing. Yeah, you know, and it goes from our immediate supervisors
all the way up.
I mean, the owner of our company often doesn't know what's happening in his own company because people make decisions, they don't tell him about it, and he's trying really hard to make things work, but he's just hitting red tape everywhere he goes. So, you know, I think there's a lot that could be done by actually not only communicating better with each other and not snarky, petty, nasty comments like we see back and forth between, our staff on our level and staff on the management level and the upper management leaders, like our, district managers and our, COO, CEO.
Mm.
Not only just communicating better between those levels and like good effective communication, but also receptiveness to, you're doing a bad job, fix it.
Yeah.
People don't like to be told that they're bad at their job. They hear that, they get immediately defensive. They're like, no, but you're blah 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 blah, and that doesn't get you anywhere. If you can be told, hey, you suck at this, get better, and you immediately like, how, and then you actually follow through with that how when you're told how, I think we would see a massive change in everything. Not only in our company, in other companies across the Northwest, across fire, across PD. If management and leadership all the way up is willing to listen to the guy on the ground of what's actually going on day to day, then I think we're going to get a lot further.
Absolutely. So I know that there's a big issue sweeping the nation right now, and I really wanted to touch on it. I don't think it's right that I have to go like be an elevator constructor, escalator guy, whatever, go around carrying Narcan on me for myself. We have a big issue right now, people smoking drugs in the elevators. I had a friend almost die recently. He got really, really nasty sick. He was trapped in it was over 30 seconds of rise, and he couldn't hold his breath because he didn't plan on holding his breath.
Yeah.
He walked in, he already breathed out, and then next thing you know, he was trapped. The doors closed, and it started. It's a hydro unit, so it's slow as hell.
Gotcha.
And it was running up, and he was in a whole elevator. Somebody was just freebasing Fetty in there, and he collapsed, walking out of there, throwing up everywhere, trying to like not dry, not throw up everywhere, but he threw up everywhere.
Yep.
And he's having to deal with that situation now. How do we best protect ourselves from those narcotics being used in a dangerous way to the public?
That's a good question. I mean, it really goes down to why are the narcotics being used in the first place? I think it's a mental health issue. It's, we're not providing, and I'm not saying that the government should provide it, because the government should keep its fingers on just about everything. But, we, the people, are not providing support for those around us when they need the help. And so they're turning to the quick fix, which is often drugs.
Okay.
And then, you as an individual, to protect yourself from those narcotics, area familiarization is probably the biggest thing, honestly. Knowing what areas are more rampant with those things, what areas are not. If you're working in a field where you're going to encounter those kinds of things, as COVID suck up as it sounds, wearing a mask, like an N95, a respirator of some sort. If you might come in contact with vapors, if you might come in contact with a powder, wearing gloves, wearing long sleeves. Basically just, if you're going to be in an area where drugs are really, really common, and it's a high likelihood that you're going to find those things, just treating your daily outfit as sort of a PPE layer, which is personal protection equipment. So wearing stuff that isn't going to expose your skin, you're wearing shoes that aren't going to get penetrated by a needle, you're wearing gloves, you're not reaching into spaces you can't see. And just being careful where you breathe.
Excellent.
Are you thinking about making a podcast? Spotify has a platform that lets you make one, and if I can figure it out, you definitely can too. You can create your own content all in one place for free with zero hangups, and even earn money as soon as you get started. Spotify lets you record and edit episodes from your phone or computer, so you can go mobile, just like I enjoy to do. My favorite thing about it is that you can create video episodes if you wish and upload them to wherever podcasts are heard. You can even set up subscriptions, or if you're like me, listener support options for listeners to help you grow. I 10 out of 10 recommend the Spotify for Podcasters app. Or, why don't you just step over to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started on your own podcast.
All right. So I have to know, what is the most crazy call that you have had?
Probably the only time I've had to do active CPR.
Okay.
We got dispatched. This is when I was living in Scranton. And we got dispatched for a head laceration. Just normal guy, middle of the night, tripped and fell, cut his head open, no big deal. It was my last training shift, last call of the night because we were off in an hour. We pull up on scene. A cop is just staring at this guy slumped on the sidewalk, definitely unconscious at the very least, just leaning against this other lady's legs. And we're like, yeah, okay. And it's pouring rain, of course. And we jump out. I have another medic and another EMT with me because it was my last training shift. And we jump out and they're like, nope, my medic takes control of the scene. Like, what the heck's going on? He's not alive. And so we pull up and we get him on the stretcher. We just throw him right on, throw him in the rig because it's pouring rain, start CPR. Like, we do all the checks, of course. And he did not make it because what are the checks? All right, well, we check like
Yeah, what are the checks? I don't know.
You gotta know how to do CPR.
the pulses, any reactions, any like he's not awake, he's not responding to verbal stimuli, pain stimuli, all those.
Yeah, testing pain stimuli, you don't like kick them in the teeth.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't?
No,
Oh, fuck.
You like grab their shoulder and like pinch really.
Well, I
fucking
just
hard.
failed.
Yeah,
I just failed.
or
in
you
the
just
whole
you
day
do the
class.
sternal rub where you
Yeah.
just kind of
Grab a
Yeah.
knuckle and just
Yes.
rub them into your sternum.
It hurts like a bitch.
Okay, yeah,
Wake
well-
you up in your
Yeah.
mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when they
Those
train
little
us in
things.
CPR, or every time I've been trained in CPR, that's one of my favorite things to do because I know it hurts. If you're conscious for real, you gotta your ear's gonna move every slightly. Your eye might twitch. Your smile might flicker. But if that don't work, you might be in bad shape, man. You
Yeah.
either you knock the fuck out or
Yes,
you're
sir.
going down the deep hole.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. So we're kind of just trying to talk to the people there, the cop of like, hey, what happened? Like, what did you show up to? The lady, like, who are you to this patient? Like, what happened? Was it just out of nowhere? Did he just fall? And so they were just walking down the sidewalk and he just collapsed. Definite history of drug use. And we could tell pretty quickly that the other bystander, I think they were just friends, not a good historian. Like, we don't really trust the story completely that she's telling us.
Oh yeah, just coming up with just throwing some stuff out there so they don't seem like they're doing the obvious drugs that they are.
Yeah. And then the other cop just standing there with his thumbs in his vest, like, just like, oh yeah, he was breathing. Yeah. No,
So-
I'm sorry, I don't believe you.
Empathy burnout, I think is what they call it, right? You're out of empathy. You've been dealing with so many things that your body subconsciously tells your brain we don't need to care about this because it'll hurt us more than it's worth.
Yes.
Or sport training. The lack of training is a huge thing in most PD,
Mm.
especially with medical.
I chatted with a couple officers recently,
Mm.
and they said they shoot once a year.
Oh my.
No, I didn't say they practice when not to shoot.
Yeah.
They shoot once a year.
Hmm.
They don't even run through scenarios of different interactions.
Yeah.
They get medically certified once a year. It's like and anybody who in the Navy who listens, it's kind of like an NKO course. It's fucking useless. It's like you just tap through PowerPoint, death by PowerPoint. They burn you out.
We got
I think
to.
that training is so essential because every time you, as a leader, train people underneath you, your tribe, your group, your crew, your subordinates, whatever you want to call them in your own personal hierarchy. However, every time you train them, you show them that it's important to care and it's important to be concerned about whatever the situation is. And that can definitely flow down the rivers of leadership, those channels that we have. I don't find a lot of that happening right now in modern day first responder world.
I think it's a big thing too. When you see this every day with the drug use so common, you're desensitized.
Desensitization. Yes.
I think that's huge.
Mm. Especially in our area. Like
Yeah.
I saw, I would say in the past just year, I've seen 10 people die and they were not be able to be resuscitated off of Narcan. And CPR, they tried everything. I watched an EMT just give up and slap this guy in the face and be like, wake the fuck up. Nothing happened. And you run out. You just throwing caution in the wind. He was like, I don't know, and he started crying, and then his partner came over and like pushed him out of the way, told him to go to the truck, and just you sitting in the truck crying. I'm trying to fix the escalator, looking over like, damn, man, he's having a tough day. I wanted to reach out to him and ask him if he's okay, but I was behind a locked in facility because of where I was at. It's really tough to have empathy after a while, but I think it's an important quality to have as a human being, to care when everybody else doesn't, about things that are normally heartbreaking for. And I don't think about the person. The person could be a douchebag. Who cares? What about their family?
The people who care about them.
Do they have a dog with them?
Right.
That's my biggest concern. Do they have a dog with you?
Is your dog gonna miss you?
Is your dog gonna miss you?
Don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs. Right. So
there was
what
a
the outcome of
commercial
that?
like years ago, and I still remember to this day of like, I think it was probably drunk driving. Like, your dog's not gonna know why you never came home.
It's a sobering thought. If I've
Isn't
ever
it?
heard one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should be. If you don't love your dog like that, I'll take him.
Yes. You're gonna have a whole lot of dogs in this region. Welcome to my dog farm.
Right.
We now accept donations. Yes. I love it, man.
Yeah. With all
So
that
what was the
free
outcome of that
time.
situation? You got obviously the thin blue line was pretty thin that day.
I mean, we did everything we could. It was the first time I did active CPR, like on a patient, and cracking the ribs, the cartilage breaking away. It is a feeling that you will never forget. My medic was trying all the different medications. We weren't super far from the hospital, but we flew there, not flew, but we drove code, and we got there as fast as we could and got him into the hospital, but he was already gone.
Oh, that's so unfortunate.
Yeah.
And what is that called when someone's unable to resuscitate them?
Just
Dead.
Dead as
But-
hell.
I mean, pretty much.
Rescheduled to God's schedule.
Was there like a code for it? Like, because we watched.
Well, if it's on scene, like we showed up, he was essentially a DOA, even though we did still try.
So
everything
dead on
that we
arrival.
could.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I try to understand terminology so I can have a better understanding when I explain it to somebody else.
Yes.
Excellent.
DOI.
Well, that is definitely a tough thing to experience.
Yeah.
And that definitely makes me wonder, because it's always different for other people. How do you deal? How do you cope with things like this? What do you do to come off shift? My boy Sean said that he has a long drive home, and he usually takes the time to decompress. He's, actively seeking ways to unburden that mental weight rack. We just stack weights and stack another weight, and we keep trying to fucking deadlift, and eventually we run out of strength. And that's a scary thought, right? What do you do?
Honestly, drives help. Music, it's huge for me. Driving out into the mountains, just away from people. If you drive up the mountain, like I've got a truck, so it's nice to be able to just drive up the mountain, get some perspective, kind of just be in nature. Remove yourself from society, from cities that we're usually in. It helps.
You think about moving to the country in the future?
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. I think that it's important to find things that work for you, because, like, especially when I have chats with other vets, and to speak in the veteran community in general, there's a lot of I wouldn't call it mental health issues. We'll call it mental health buildup, right? Because how we deal with the mind. Mental health is a form of fitness, in my opinion, and I would say it's one of the greatest opinions I've ever had, because it's a realization I came to listening to someone talk about surviving suicide. And he said that I train my mind every day in mental fitness. And I'm like, damn,
That is huge.
That's hard.
he got blown up a couple times in Iraq, can barely, function in modern day society physically, but he's mentally one of the strongest person I've ever met. And it took him being at the lowest of his low to see the perspective, right? So as we gain more perspective in life, I think it's beautiful to share those tools, and you're sharing tools right now with me. And I do appreciate you talking about, because it's not easy to talk about dealing with someone, no matter how much they desensitize it in the movies, in Hollywood. It's not just a patient. It's not just a body. You're not just working on somebody in your job field. a human being.
I think
Somebody's
it's
daughter,
also
You take it home.
son, you take it home sometimes.
absolutely, and it's really hard not to. You can try everything, but unfortunately, you do take something home. And then another analogy, I think I saw this like a year or two ago, with like your mental state of what you can handle each day. You wake up and you are like a glass of water or whatever. Everyone wakes up with a different amount in that same cup. Everyone's at a different level of what they're already holding inside. And then as little things get to them each day, that level of water keeps rising. So there's only so much you can take. You don't know what level someone else is at. And then if you're still like you're going through, especially first responders, like it fills up a little faster with what we see, unfortunately. And
It's because
it's just a
you
matter
never
of
show up to
time.
positive things. I had an argument with somebody this last week. They were talking about how the cops they always seem like they seem like they have fatigue,
Mhm.
empathy fatigue is what it's called.
Yep.
Or they're running out of emotional fitness, or
Mhm.
or they don't give a fuck, or they look like they're just having resting bitch face or whatever. And I asked him, I said, when's the last time you heard about a cop, an EMT, or a firefighter showing up to a positive call?
Mhm.
And the
You
look
don't.
of confusion was
Mhm.
pretty valid, because I've never heard of that shit.
Mhm.
You know, they don't show up to pull cats out of trees anymore like
No.
they do in the movies.
Mm-mm.
I don't know what false reality people are living in. It's
Yeah.
very, very important for first responders to put integers into place so that they can heal. You know,
Mhm.
one thing I do every day to make sure that I don't carry things from the military into my daily life is I separate the two in my mind. But compartmentalization does not work for everyone. It doesn't. Not
Mm-mm.
everybody has had 4 years of isolation away from your
Yeah.
family, and you spend every day learning how to isolate yourself. Like I
Yeah.
spent 4 years isolating and compartmentalizing my
Mhm.
emotions, my past, my traumatic experiences in life,
Mhm.
and I started to open them up about last year,
Mhm.
slowly, one
Mhm.
at a time.
Yeah.
It takes, for the average male, I can't remember the stats for ladies, but it takes the average male 7 to 12 years just for emotional trauma that you've held underwater
Mhm.
to ultimately force it to the surface.
Yeah.
And you have no choice, especially, and you know what happened back in 2014? Well, that's about 7 years exactly after the push in Iraq, I believe, or one of the two, Iraq, Afghanistan.
I think, yeah.
And there was a major ramp up in
Yeah.
mental health issues in the veteran community. And I was
Yeah.
like, wait a second. Started doing more research.
Yep.
Coping.
That tracks.
Coping, how you cope with stuff is essential.
Yeah.
And learning to find new coping mechanisms. What other
Every
things
day.
do you enjoy to do to cope?
Honestly, those are probably the biggest things that help me. Or talking to someone with similar experiences because they'll understand. You got to talk about it. You got to let it out. You got to stop building because it will build up and you will lose it. And I think another thing to backpack off of what you were saying of like bringing stuff home from work, it's not only just bringing stuff home. Everyone has a home life.
Mhm.
You can try to leave it at home, but you can't.
Mhm.
Things will mix. You're going to bring your work home and you're going to bring your home life to work. You can't just forget about what's going on in your life outside of work. So a lot of things, it's going to be on the back of your mind. You're going to be distracted. And then another thing that I was taught in training too, like we don't show up to good calls. That's not what we're here for.
Mhm.
We are here for other people's worst days that they've had. They call us on their worst days. And we have to remember that it's their worst day, not ours. And I think that's something really, really hard to keep separated in your mind because, oh, this is going on. I need to get there. I need to do this. Like, I need to just jump in. But you need to try at least to have a more level mind because we are here to help them. We are not here to make it worse. This is their worst day right now, not ours.
Wow.
Mhm.
You know, there's a lot of power behind what you just said. I've only heard that quote once before in my entire life, and it was, you know, I got the same hairs on the back of my neck stand up. It's so true. It's raw, it's real. You are showing up for someone's worst day of their entire life. That doesn't matter what age. I think there's a stigma that surrounds facility transport, right? Going from job to job. I think that is an insanely important thing.
Mhm.
No, because no one else is doing it.
Mhm.
And if someone didn't pick up those calls, then every single call where resuscitation is needed is going to be in the middle of taking somebody who cannot physically move themselves into the back of their rig and say, "Oh, sorry, we got to leave you here in the middle of the street. We got to go, do CPR, or we got to go put out a fire, or there's an active shooter in a school." And all these things, it's super important to have the awareness and the empathy from the community as well, right? I've never ever seen anybody freak out on an EMT when they're showing up to help. Jack, have you ever had a freak out on you story? I take that as a yes.
Well, so what you were saying earlier about how people always make comments about the cops rolling up with resting bitch face.
Do you have resting bitch face?
He
when
is
you
that
roll up?
EMT.
I have been told I have resting murder face, where I walk around baseline just looking like I'm ready to drop a bitch.
You know what you need? You need face tats.
I really do.
You just need, just keep the teeth going like this all the way up to here.
Yeah.
Show me a smile.
I think the mask helps.
It a little bit, yeah.
Why?
Just a
So
tiny bit, but
serious. Like,
yes, sir.
You want to know how I got these scars?
Get the hand tat, dude.
Yeah.
I'm actually planning on doing that.
Yeah. That'd be
Yeah.
sick. That'd be sick.
Yeah, as soon as I'm a mechanic out, I want to get that tattoo.
I fuck with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a couple patients freak out on me. Usually, I can chalk it up to they're distressed. They're having a bad day. They've been in the hospital for 30 some odd hours. They don't want to be here just as much as I don't want to be there. So, like, usually I can compartmentalize that a little bit and be like, all right, you're being a dick, but I get it. If I was in your shoes, I would be equally as pissed off at the fact that, like, really? I've been here for 30 hours and I'm about to go to another hospital. Go fuck yourself. Like, I get that.
Or they don't have room for the person.
Exactly.
Or they don't have
like,
the specialist on.
Hey, so I know
staffing.
you're comfortable here, but...
Or it's on the weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
That's huge too.
Yeah.
Can't see a judge till Monday. I mean, can't see a doctor till Monday.
Yeah.
And it was just like, well...
I think that's something also that's huge that contributes to burnout.
Yeah.
Because we are here on everyone else's worst days. They're exhausted. They don't feel good. They've got all these things going on. We got to take them to this place and take them to this place. So it sucks.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all our calls.
Yeah.
That's all we're
Every
dealing
single
with.
So every
now
single
we're
one of their
dealing.
worst days
It's just
is your regular
regular
day.
That is our
Yeah.
life. We deal with this back to back calls.
Yeah.
So I think that's huge.
Our 9 to 5 is their worst day.
And that
It is what it is.
I think that creates a different tier of emotional fitness and putting up those protective layers. And I don't think there's is there, like, do you think there's
I
a
think if
way
you
to
can
even
handle
get
it.
that? To even build up without experiencing the shit?
I'd like to say yes, but I don't think so.
I don't think it would speak to the same volume
No.
of actually
I think-
experiencing it.
The closest thing that you'd be able to get is not in a self-harm way, because I don't condone self-harm.
Okay.
But to punish yourself in ways that are productive. So doing things that make you physically uncomfortable, make you mentally uncomfortable, challenging yourself to, if you struggle with learning, reading a book that's not like Percy Jackson, but reading, neuroscience by PhD, Robert, whatever, like reading some like super hardcore high density material. If that's something you struggle with, putting yourself in that situation. If you're uncomfortable with the cold, putting yourself in situations where you're going to be freezing your ass off. If you're out of shape, getting your ass to the gym, doing things that make you uncomfortable and doing that every single day, as many times a day as you can handle. I think that's the only thing that can build some sort of resilience.
Stress inoculation?
Stress inoculation.
Okay.
Putting yourself in stressful situations, and not Call of Duty. Call of Duty is not stressful.
Oh God.
But like,
I don't know, man. There
I
was
mean,
this
listen,
one
I
time
get-
it was glitching real hard. I can definitely
you
understand.
get excited when you're playing video games, but it's not stress to the level of you get tunnel vision. You start forgetting, why am I here? What's my name? Who am I? Like, what am I doing?
Yes.
You don't finish that situation and you're sitting on the back of your in your car or in the back of your rig, like literally shaking for hours.
Mhm.
It's not stress like the full body shutdown stress that you experience when you go through something traumatic, when you see something super high octane like that, when you do things where it's life or death, maybe not your life, but there is life on the line. When it gets to that point, like, you don't realize how much you can take until you have hit your breaking point.
Wow.
Another thing,
That's serious.
yeah, to go off of that too, with our days, like we could have a terrible call, like we just transferred this pediatric RSV, like they're not breathing. We just transported them for 45 minutes and now we have to go transport an elderly patient home.
And when you say
And it's
pediatric,
hard to
I
like
mean,
babies.
a child.
Yes,
A child who's
exactly. There was
Yeah.
the one night we had back-to-back pediatrics, so that's younger, 0 to a few years old.
I think it's pediatric.
Pediatric is technically 0 to 17.
Yeah. But
So
you
they're
have
neoners,
neonates,
but yeah,
toddlers,
newborns.
children, and young adults, I think is the
Yeah.
a bunch of
medical breakdown.
subcategories, but generally speaking, you're taking somebody else's child
Mhm.
when they're looked at as a child.
Yeah.
So that has got to be,
Often with the
to me, like as an outsider looking in, that must be top 10 scariest thoughts of my life. Is what would I do if I had somebody else's kid dying on me and I have to save this child?
Yeah, it's not fun.
It's hard to separate your feelings from one call to the next because it's residual.
Yeah, and it's
You
constant
haven't
too.
had time.
Calls don't stop.
No.
Mhm.
You haven't had time to mentally process.
Your day doesn't. Your day never comes to an end when you have a bad call.
Okay.
You just have a bad call. You suck it up. You get home.
Mhm.
That's all you're doing.
Okay. Well, I know that it's super important to talk about it. So, and I want to say before we continue, thank you for sharing about your worst call, and thank you for sharing about the tough calls that you're experiencing. I think it's literally terrifying to me, the thought of, birthing a child or having somebody I love that's young on that level of, I don't know if this person's going to make it.
Yeah.
Have you had, and this is the other side that I wanted to ask about these situations, the families, how do they react to you showing up? What's the first look in their eyes when they see you walk through their door when you are responding to a oh shit call?
Fear.
Is there there's no
not,
ease of it at all
no.
when they see you?
It's not, because the thing is, so look at it this way. It's not necessarily because, and oftentimes you don't realize this until you get to somewhere traumatic. It's not real until it is. So their child is dying, something is happening that's pretty fucking awful. They don't realize how serious it is until you walk in the door and they're like, oh shit, the ambulance is actually here. Oh my God, my child's going to the hospital. Oh my God, what does this mean? And so seeing and the children that we've transported, especially children, sometimes if it's a psych transport, if it's an old person, oftentimes the family just looks tired because they're like, here we go again, kind of thing. But with kids, it's often the first time. And so
there's no empathy fatigue.
No,
it's just raw emotion,
raw terror, raw fear. Is my child going to live to see the morning? And I don't think you can really quantify in any way, shape, or form the kind of pain that you can see in a parent's eyes when they're watching their child get wheeled away on a stretcher. Then the kids that we've taken, we've picked them up from the hospital, so they've at least had some contact with medical personnel before that. And I say medical personnel, I don't mean EMTs. I don't mean, to me, the medical world is all one big team. Nurses, doctors, EMTs, everybody, we're on the same level. We don't know all the same shit. Obviously I can't give nurse stuff, but, we all work together to achieve the outcome of making people better. And so we all kind of operate in the same little circuit. Nurses will disagree with me because they're nurses, but, is what it is.
I think you look good in scrubs.
I think this booty would look great in scrubs.
No, I didn't say that. Come on. Well, there it is. He said it.
The hospital The hospital setting, I don't know. I think I get 911 sickness. You know,
Yeah.
Being out on the road is just that's where I'm supposed to be.
Do you
like being
find it like being a higher calling
A little
kind of thing? Like I know that when people are in the element, it's one of my favorite things ever
Mhm.
because you start to realize at first like the rush of oh shit, like
Yeah.
is this really life?
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, you're like, all right, I know what to do here.
Mm-hmm.
This is my path.
Yeah.
You
Do
have
you-
to
do you
trust
feel-
yourself.
You do. Yeah. I will say I've never felt more at home than when I have lights and sirens running and I've got a patient in the back.
Okay.
Like
And what about
that's-
you? Do you feel like this is a path for you to career? You know, like not I wouldn't say a career. Do you feel like you're on your life journey?
Honestly, yeah, I like being out on the road. I think also driving between calls helps you process the last call a little bit, breathe. It gives you a little bit of a break. When you're in the hospital, you're just next room, next room, next room, next room. There really isn't a break until you are like in a break room and you're still in the hospital. So I think that's a little bit of a different day to day with hospital versus non-hospital. But also when you're transporting a patient, you're all they have.
Mhm.
The best thing that you can do is drive them to the next hospital. So I think that's just a different stress.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You have to know that you can trust yourself and your instincts and your training.
If you can't trust your training, get more.
Definitely. I think that it's definitely important to always have good training. So I know that you are going to be constantly changing and evolving. Like we always constantly change and evolve in life. What are the different levels to the EMT life that you've lived so far, Miss Maghan?
So there's standard 3 levels of transport. There's like cabulance or like van calls where it's just a wheelchair van. It's one EMT with a wheelchair. They're the only person. It's usually they just can't move around very much on their own. The next is BLS, basic life support. It's 2 EMTs, one driving, one in the back with a stretcher. So they're either bedbound, they need oxygen, they just need some monitoring. Pretty basic vitals. We take like manual blood pressure, pulse, oxygen saturation, respirations, that kind of thing. And then we have ALS, advanced life support. That's some more serious, in-depth calls. They've got more going on. And then, but also a step up from that, because ALS is usually in most places, it's a paramedic and an EMT. But in our county, it runs a little bit different. So with me personally, my day-to-day now is I just switched. I am working with a nurse. So it's a critical care transport, which is ALS, but it's critical.
Okay.
So it's the more in-depth transfers. And so it's a nurse, not a paramedic. So they have a higher level of certification and training. They are obviously a registered nurse. They're not a paramedic. So they've been to years of schooling. So we'll have usually like an ICU essentially, a lot of nurses. So we'll have patients where they have medications running. They're either scheduled or they have drips. So what that means is you are on a medication, but it needs to be going into your IV certain amount over a period of time. So it's gradual. It's not just a push of a medication. It drips through.
So it's like an ICU on wheels.
Yes.
I think the ICUs are portrayed interestingly across Hollywood and TV. I know there's obviously gonna be watered down script and stuff like that. Are
They
there
gotta
some
make it interesting.
Are there some difficult calls that are associated, obviously, probably with that as well?
Yeah. It's critical. They are not stable. We are usually taking them from a lower care facility or hospital to where they need to go to a more high trained, like more qualified hospital, like just a higher tier, bigger hospitals. Like, so you think going down to the city.
Wow.
Yeah. So we'll have patients on like a ventilator or they're intubated. So they are not breathing on their own. They are not conscious. So
you're like taking
our
the
nurse,
ICU,
yeah,
and you're moving them, and then you're dropping them off at a different location so they can receive the most important thing on the premise of keeping them alive.
Yep. So we've got our ABCs: airway, breathing, circulation. Those are the 3 most important things to keep you alive.
Mm-hmm.
Is your airway open? Are you breathing? Can you breathe on your own? Is your blood circulating? Otherwise, you're not alive.
100%.
We got to keep you alive. So a lot of times, too, it's taking them from an ER. Something happened. And in this area, too, I haven't seen this other places. We have a lot of standalone ERs. So it's not an urgent care. It's an ER. So they are more certified than an urgent care, but they do not have a hospital attached. There's no going upstairs to the OR or the hospital floor or the ICU. They don't have that.
Which
we need to
brings
come
the
in.
necessity for a crew to come over and transport them.
Yes. Which I get from a healthcare company standpoint. Get ERs more all over the place. It helps with wait times. You get seen faster. So it kind of weeds out the day-to-day, less serious, lower priority calls or patients. So that helps, but then it brings in that other factor of, well, we need to get you to a higher level of care. So that's where we come in.
Well, I know that Dr. Gray can't just show up and save every day.
Because unfortunately, she's not real.
I know.
There's no Derek Shepard.
I showed up to get a signature at the hospitals on, I'm not gonna name where it's at, but on over here in Seattle.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Come on, man, where is she at?" And they're like, "Are you
just an actress?
Me? Are you kidding me? Are you that daft?" And I really had high hopes.
Yeah,
that
that'd
I was
be
gonna
nice.
get a signature.
If only it was real.
No, I'm just joking. I didn't show up. I didn't show up.
Just
I
a dream.
I fixed a couple elevators over there, but that was it. It was like the worst situation ever.
I think you'd be stunned about how many people have probably actually done that.
Yeah. Oh, for real?
Oh,
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think that I've said it a couple times on this show and definitely throughout my life regularly. All my heroes, they're either usually wearing American flags on their shoulder. They usually get covered in somebody's blood from time to time, or shit, or
It's way too much of that.
or attacked, trying to do the right thing, and that is one of my most things I want to really put out to the world as well. Is that our first responders, they're dealing with things regularly that we see red and blue lights. Oh, what's going on over here? Let's see if I can get a picture, put it on my Ring doorbell app, and did you big cop presence? What's going on over here? Oh, I see fire trucks. What's going on over here? They want to know more.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really interesting to hear a different perspective directly from people who are involved in the world of life saving. Right? What is one of the most impactful thing that's happened as far as calls go that you've experienced?
Most impactful?
Impactful. Positive or negative?
Personally, I mean, it's the patients that really get to you are the ones that you can relate to.
Okay.
When you're in a transport, especially if it's a longer one, you talk with your patient, you get to know what brought them to this day. They're in your ambulance, you're taking care of them, what brought them here. And sometimes you relate to your patients, and I think those always really hit home. And I think that is huge. Impactful too. It's also those calls that really have a big impact on you is when you actually use your skills.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I got into this. I learned all of this. I went through training, and now I'm actually utilizing that, and I am being of use.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually helping someone now. Last week, I was working with my nurse. We were picking up from an ER, taking them to a hospital just for a higher level of care. She was older, in her 80s. She's just kind of rapid decline because, you're getting older. It's inevitable. It's happening. You're getting older. Your body's shutting down, this and that.
Cars break down, so does the body.
Exactly. Yep. And we're just taking them 10 minutes away to a different hospital, because it was a standalone ER. We get there, and she's stable. She's not doing well. Her breathing is her work of breathing is getting worse. She's getting really tired from overcompensating because her body is shutting down.
So we're losing the B in the trifecta.
Yeah. We get outside. We're about to load her up into our ambulance, and her blood pressure drops. Now, normal is about 120/80. We want to see that, generally. She
Usually take
dropped.
15.
Yeah, generally. She dropped to 60 over 30. Her heartbeat went from in the 80s to 30.
Jesus.
Huge decline. So we rushed her back in, tried to stabilize before we could transport her, because instead of just me and my nurse working alone in the back of the rig in the parking lot, we took her back inside so there were more hands to help stabilize her. I had another one 2 weeks ago. It was a kidney infection. Like, he had a kidney stone, but it got infected. Not good. He was starting to go septic, so his body was shutting down. It's just he's fighting an infection, and he's not winning. So we were taking him to a higher level of care in a hospital, and I think we were going to take him to an ICU. Rapid declining while we're talking to the nurse, just getting a report of like, hey, what brought him in? What's going on? How's he doing? Like, what do we need to do? Where are we taking him? That kind of thing. In the middle of a report, he declines. He is starting to get, tachypnic. So his breathing is going up. Like, he's breathing a lot faster. His heart rate is increasing. His blood pressure is
So short, rapid breaths.
Yes.
So he's
short, shallow. He's struggling to fight this. His body is fighting. It's shutting down. It's having a hard time. And at first they were like, oh, is he just nervous because he's gonna have surgery? Like, it's an infected kidney stone. He's starting to go septic. Like, it's not good. His body is having a hard time fighting this infection. And so they were like, maybe it's anxiety. We go back. We all go in, try to check out the patient, what's going on, assess him more, and it's just getting worse. And he started to get tired. And so, what happens when you get tired from breathing so much? You stop breathing. Yeah. So he had to get intubated. So there's a tube down his throat to breathe for him. They give him meds, so he is no longer conscious. So he's not fighting the tube, because you will fight that. You don't want a tube in your throat. You want to breathe. So that's something that you see more often working with a nurse, because you take those critical patients, the ones that are stable 1 minute and then they decline.
And so it's like a rapid change over seconds.
Oh, it can be instant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
so you have to be alert.
Yeah, you have to be alert. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Attention to detail is essential for any type of life saving that needs to be done. I've only had, I would say, probably less than 14. Like, last time I counted was 14, but I don't really count one anymore. But so I would say 14 life saving events that I've been personally involved with, and it's scary, because you don't, like me. Obviously, I'm not an EMT. I'm not a licensed EMT. I haven't gone to school. I haven't studied how to do even the most basic of advanced.
You want to help, but you don't know how.
I want to help, but I don't know how.
Yeah.
And trying to bridge that gap has been is super, super, super difficult for me. But it's because of lack of effort. I'm almost scared to know more, because then I'll know what to do, and I'll feel obligated to help out more. But, like, at the same time, what type of douchebag would I be if I didn't?
It's a good Samaritan.
I just admitted now I have to do it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that being certified as an EMT is definitely something in my future. I know that my wife was talking about it as well. Just to get the certification, just to have, right?
Yeah.
Because once you're in that situation, you want to help.
Yeah.
Then you're stuck.
I mean, can you do simple CPR? Can you troubleshoot while doing CPR?
Yeah.
Can you troubleshoot while someone's choking?
Yeah.
Not just the Heimlich maneuver. That shit might not just work by itself. Can you also troubleshoot at the same time?
Yeah.
And we deal with this on escalators with just more
Are
experience.
you somewhere that has service that you can call 911 while you're trying to help them?
100%.
Do it at the same time. You don't need to call and then help, or help then call. Do it at the same time.
Call 911, speakerphone, throw it on the ground, do your CPR.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, for the basic civilian, if you want to make yourself a little bit more of an asset to your community, at the very minimum, take a stop the bleed class and take a CPR class.
Okay.
If you got those two things, you're going to be able to help a lot more than you think.
Excellent.
And beyond that, if you feel the need to help others, but you don't necessarily want to get into a career of first response into medical, an EMT class is $1,600 and 12 weeks. And I think most people could spare that. You know, over the course of a year, you'll spend $1,600 on bucket coffee and beer.
Yeah.
You know? If you really want to dedicate yourself to being a better, what is it? Citizen,
Just a human being, a citizen.
a community member, you know, a better person to those around you. You know, maybe you have an elderly neighbor. You know, if you want to be able to potentially save their life one day, it's a blinking of an eye in the 80 some odd years that you're going to be alive. 12 weeks is nothing.
Absolutely.
You
And
know,
everybody's
you should get the training.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody's got a mother, sister, cousin, auntie that can benefit from you helping them out. It's not really difficult. So one thing that also kind of ties into training is the experience itself, right? Because there's some things you cannot fake. You cannot fake having experience in life is one of the most important things that we cannot fake.
Nope.
You can't fake being raw and authentic. You can't fake being a genuine person. You can always tell who the people who have the creepy smiles. They're like looking you right in the eyes, like they're trying to sell you themselves. And it makes me kind of really scared and nervous. I don't like it. Just put that out there for anybody who's listening that you might have a creepy smile like that. Please don't. Just be real, you know?
Be yourself.
So that
Life's
that
too short.
experience, right? What has that experience done for you? Like going through a tough call, you know, obviously a majority of them are tough ones. It's no bullshit, right? You're in a career field, and I think we can talk more candidly now that we kind of set the foundation. You're dealing with the most fucked up shit the world has to offer regularly. You have to have some level of experience in order to deal with it and emerge from that fire unscathed. So what does that look like for you, Miss Maghan? Like, what does that experience do for you for the next time you get a tough call? Does it mentally harden you? Does it just prepare you? Does it make you dread the next call?
Like what specifically? Like what?
How has taking hard calls made you better at your job? Essentially,
That's a good
better
way to
as a
say it.
person.
I think
I should have said it like that. Damn it.
You gotta translate for it all the time.
Jack is now the new host of the. No, I'm joking. I quit.
Personally, I think the more experience you have under your belt helps, because the more tough calls you have, you're able to kind of look back and be like, how did I handle this? How did I get through that day? And it helps give you perspective. It helps you absorb what's going on instead of react. You have to kind of just sit with that feelings for a second. You don't want to be a reactive person. You will make mistakes. You need to remember what you learned, what you were taught, what you've been through, what works, what doesn't. You don't want to just start freaking out, because otherwise you're not adding to that situation. You're making it worse effectively.
Okay. So avoiding being a reactive individual is essential.
It goes back to, this is not your worst day. This is not your situation. This is not your life. You're here to help them because you want to be a good person. You want to help. You want to make this situation easier. You want to make this transition smoother. You want to add positive influence. You don't want to make it worse.
Yeah.
This is not your personal decision. Like, this is not your personal situation, experience.
Don't have a pity party for yourself.
No.
Do you have?
This is what we chose. Our patients did not choose for this to happen.
No.
Yes, 100%. You got to sit and walk in the light that you're in.
Yeah.
It sounds,
you need to remember what you're there for.
Yeah, it sounds heartless, but you need to turn off your emotions.
Okay. Yeah, I this all the time.
To a point.
To a point.
Yes.
You need to be in tune enough to show them that you care, but not so much that you're allowing your personal emotions to flow into your call.
That's not your place.
You need to and like I said, it's going to sound really heartless, but each and every one of our patients are nothing but an objective until we get them cleared, and then they become people again.
I think it's another way to say that is like putting on a shelf. Putting our feelings on the back burner till we clear, till we transfer care. And then we can process that. We can feel our feelings about what we just went through. Now we can take that back in. We can put that back on our plate and say, okay, Now I can process this. We helped them through this situation. Now I need to bring myself through this so I can do it again.
Yeah. You need to focus. If you're not focused, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
So something that I normally bring up at the end of the episodes of Servant Sacrifice is, what does servant sacrifice mean to you? And the answer is almost usually, like, not verbatim, but in their own way of saying it. I'm giving a little bit of me is the service part.
Mm-hmm.
My family did all the
Absolutely.
sacrificing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You learn
But
who you are.
you kind of give up a piece of you. It's, for me, it's like giving up a piece of yourself
Mm-hmm.
for the ultimate goal of somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
That is service, right?
Mhm.
And another gentleman most recently said, the service is loving one another. You love somebody else by giving them a service in life, right?
Absolutely.
And I can agree with that to a certain extent.
That reminds me of a quote I read like forever ago, is you go through life, you start life with your own heart and love, and you go through life giving little pieces of away to yourself. But to know that you are living a fulfilling life is you and your as you're going through life, you look back and you have little pieces from other people.
That hits home.
I love this chick. God damn.
That's awesome, man. I love it. That's awesome. That's awesome. You're just an educational wealth of knowledge.
She is.
I am really
She
good at
really
processing shit by reading quotes
Mhm.
because it helps with perspective.
Okay.
Mhm.
It helps refocus your mindset.
Yeah.
You're no longer sitting and drowning in these feelings. It helps pull you out and be like, okay, what did I get out of this experience?
Mm.
You don't go through something and it's not, you want to find the good and the bad. There's yin yang, there's good and the bad. There are highs and lows in life. If you don't have the lows, you don't know the highs.
Yes.
It's the same with a heartbeat. You need the ups and the downs. Otherwise you're flatline.
Yes, that is a good way of saying it. I'm gonna start having to work that into how I usually tell people shit all the time regularly, because that's it. That is exactly it. You can't have the lightness without dark. And I think that we as human beings, we're not necessarily good or bad. Like
Everyone
there's
is a mix.
so much benefit to being a bad person a lot of the time,
Life is a gray area.
but you have to like kind of tiptoe through how much of a bad person you are, or you're gonna let it consume you. Right? You have to have the balance.
You can't give from an empty cup either. You have to be selfish to a point.
Yes.
You have to, it's going to sound bad, but you have to make yourself the number one priority. Otherwise, you can't keep helping. You cannot serve if you are not taking care of yourself.
Mm.
You can't give from an empty cup.
100%. I think that is also great relationship advice. You have to love yourself before you can love somebody else, and it definitely takes time.
And I agree with that to a point.
Mhm.
Yes, you do need to love yourself, but I think you also need to learn how to have patience. And if you find the right person, they will point out the things that you don't see in yourself. You're not going to love every part of yourself. That's just not possible. There are always things that you are going to want to work on, to change, because that's human. That's a good thing. You want to keep going through life, changing, evolving, getting better. And the right person, if you have the right person in your life loving you, then they will point that out, and they'll also help you realize where you've come from. You're not going to see the change day-to-day life. You're not going to see the little things that you're getting better at, but the people that, if you're surrounded by good people, they will point that out, and they will remind you that you're still doing a good job. You can have a bad call, but if you have a good partner, if you have good people at home, a good home life, good managers that say thank you, good family members of your patients that say thank you for doing this. Yesterday, that was the highlight of our shift. We took a old man to a assisted living, like a family home to take care of, because a wife couldn't take care of him because they're both getting up in age. And she was just so genuinely thankful that we were there to do that job because she couldn't do it. That's what we're there for.
So it makes it all worth it.
Damn. That's definitely like a one of those like hair on the back of the neck, hair on the arm, stand up things. There's so much power in what you just said, and so much. I would say it's just raw wisdom, and you both have graced me with so much of that so far this episode, and
You learn.
I really do
what you
appreciate
go
it. I think it's essential that we do take care of ourselves and understand that we have boundaries as human beings.
You
We're not going to
have
be able to save the world.
Mhm.
No one can save the world. Heroes complex, hero mentality
Can't
is
save
really
everybody.
dangerous. And it has the other side of it, which is called imposter syndrome, which are both very dangerous.
Very.
I've had a lot of friends struggle with imposter syndrome, and I hope that I can always recognize the signs of it and try to help support another friend.
You need to be self-aware.
But you do.
You need to be able to call yourself out.
Yep.
But
also have
and be willing to accept it.
Yeah. And have the people around you that will call you out too in a loving way. They're not coming at you. They're coming to you and they're calling you out because they care about you and they want the best.
Wow. There's I 100% agree. I think that is something I tried to personally develop with my inner circle. Like the people I call my friends, I usually don't even call them that. I call them my family, right?
It's the family you choose.
And that is a seriously important thing that I try to dial in with the youth these day and age.
Yeah, I did not.
You don't have to just stick with your family.
Just because you've known them
just
forever.
because they are related to you doesn't mean a damn thing. Blood is not thicker than water. I don't care who says it. I don't care who. You know what? The people who love you, who are related to you physically with your DNA, will use that as every single excuse to treat you poorly if they want to treat you poorly.
Yes.
And you have to demand and command self-respect, or respect by demanding self-respect from yourself.
You also, it helps with the perspective of how people treat you is a reflection of them, not you.
Yes.
So you have to be able to absorb that. Look at if it helps, look at it from their perspective of where they're coming from, and it'll help you process that better and realize it's not you.
I think that one of my favorite things that you mentioned earlier was tough calls, you know, and what you've learned from Jack. What's one of the most powerful and important things that you've learned from your tough calls?
I think if I had to narrow it down to one thing,
or a few,
you know, I mean, if I can give a few,
yeah,
learning the stress inoculation, learning how to function on a high level under extreme stress.
Everything is a snap judgment.
Everything is a snap judgment. And not only knowing that you're going to make the right decision at the right time, but also not second guessing yourself.
But also having the humility to admit when, hey,
ooh,
maybe that wasn't the best call.
Yeah.
I could, or this would have been better.
Yeah.
Not being so hard on yourself, saying, oh, I messed up big time. Okay, this is what I did. This, like, I will own up to it. You need to own your actions.
Yeah.
But also growing from that. Learn from it. Don't let it keep you down. Saying, okay, I did that. It happened. Everything turned out okay or whatever.
Yeah.
Now this is what I can do instead. This is in the future.
Yeah. Making a mistake, learning how to learn from it.
You learn something every day.
Every single day.
If you're doing it right.
I'd say, yeah, that resilience, learning how to make a snap judgment and making it, I think, I don't know if it was a military leadership, somebody said, make a decision and make it right. And that doesn't mean make the right decision. It means make a decision and then make that decision work. Figure out, okay, I made my decision. You need to make a decision right now.
You can't dwell on
it's life or death. You can't sit there and and ha over what's going to happen next. You make that decision. If it wasn't perfect, make it perfect. If it wasn't right, make it right.
Justify.
You always have the opportunity to adjust. And if you don't have that opportunity, you need more training. You need to practice more. You need to understand more of what you're doing. Because if you're making decisions that completely fuck over everything that you've just done, you're obviously not where you need to be. And that's not placement-wise, that's training-wise. It's knowledge-wise. It's you don't have the skill to do what you just tried to do, or you do and you forgot it because you haven't refreshed those skills in too long.
You're not going to have a terrible call every call.
No.
You're not going to have those skills as sharp as you would want them to be in a perfect scenario.
You're going to need to constantly, I mean, skills, honestly, skills are like a fine blade. You need to constantly sharpen that blade.
It gets dull after a while.
It does. Especially if you're using it for stupid stuff. You know, I like to have my personal carry knives. I like them to all be shaving sharp. Do I use them to open boxes? Absolutely, I do. But at the same time, I use them to open boxes. They get dull doing stupid stuff.
Mhm.
But I want my knife to be able to cut deep if I need it to.
Yeah, whatever you need. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's something that it applies to your skills. You need to have your skills able to perform at an extremely high level if it needs to. And if it's dulling itself on routine and bullshit and useless, just kind of, I don't need these skills anymore, I take grandma home. No, you need those skills. You need to practice those skills. You need to think about those skills. You need to refresh those bad calls in your mind on an almost daily basis and remind yourself, this is why I do this job. This is why I want to continue to do this job. And this is how I can get better at doing this job.
Not to mention, for lack of a better phrase, taking grandma home, it can be a run-of-the-mill call. It could be just like everything back-to-back, repetitive. Load her up, take her home, get her in bed, make sure she's comfortable, and leave.
Yeah.
Or, it is grandma. They're a little
Grandma
up in
dies on
age.
the way.
Or she starts, like, her pressure's getting soft. Like, it's going down. Her heart rate slows. You need to know when you need to turn around and get them back to a higher level of care. When you need to know when it's not safe to leave them there anymore. Whether they're at home, whether they're at facility, or whether maybe they're getting a little unstable. You need to be able to recognize that and address that to the facility staff. Keep an eye on this. Make sure it doesn't get worse.
Always be sharp.
You are their advocate.
Excellent. So critical risk management.
Absolutely.
Continuously. So every single second of the day.
And
Those checks and minuses.
Yep.
On the decision board, because decision is Latin, comes from the word decision, which means to cut. So it's decision. So you have to cut off everything that is not a part of what you decide to choose.
Yep.
You have to hone that in, right?
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things about making decisions in stressful moments is the first most important step to me personally is absolving yourself.
Yeah.
That means of guilt.
Yep.
Of what if you fuck up, you have to just work through it.
Yep.
Take yourself out of the situation.
Take yourself out of the situation. This is about what is best physically for this other person or this other situation.
Yep.
Oh, I don't want to do this. Like, maybe I should do this. Maybe I shouldn't. But, I don't want to. Let me just tell the next person do it. No, do it. Your gut. Trust your gut. You know this needs to happen. Do it.
Yep. Every time. You should be thinking in a very, very black and white way. Life is a gray area, yes, but when you make decisions, is this happening or not? And you need to pick one of those instantly. And you cannot miss, because
Repetition.
It's repetition. And if you're not, you should pride yourself on your ability to perform. And if you're not taking pride in your performance, whether it be at work, whether it be at home, whether it be your mental, your physical, your job, whatever, it doesn't matter. You should take pride in your performance. And if that starts to slip and you start to question, am I doing good enough? You're not. If you have the question, am I good enough? You need to fix something. You should be able to look at yourself and be like, I'm doing enough. I am fixing things. I am working on it. You need to at least have a path.
If someone showed up on your worst day, would you trust yourself?
Yeah.
I see. Well, there's a lot that goes into this whole EMT thing.
There is. Yeah. It's a lot, but it's a little. It's a very, very simple entry point. But once you get on the job, you learn a lot about who you are, the kind of person that you are under stress. You learn a lot about the type of people you communicate with, how you like to communicate. You learn a lot about your ability to handle not only traumatic experiences, but irritating experiences. Because I think that goes massively underspoken. Everybody likes to highlight, I had the worst call ever, or I had a terrible deployment, or this and that. But that's not what gets to you. What gets to you is the irritating day in, day out. My chain of command is garbage. I had a really annoying call where nobody was communicating with me. It's the stuff that just wears down your soul, not on a traumatic level, but on a level of like, how can you be this stupid? How are you not listening to me? How are you not paying attention to what's going on right now? It's the small things that take tiny chinks out of your armor that you don't realize is taking anything from you until you've got a gaping fucking hole and something goes straight through it. And then you're lying on the ground bleeding out. You have no idea what to do.
And experience hardens that.
Sometimes.
Your armor.
Sometimes experience makes it worse. You know, the more you experience, especially in our field, where honestly, I'd say it's about 30% routine, 30%, you know, real BLS is what I like to call it. 20% emergencies, 10% oh shits. In
pretty good ratios.
Yeah. So in about 60% of that is routine, basic. You do the same thing day in, day out.
Okay.
And that wears you down a lot more than people talk about. You know, people talk about, I don't ever want a desk job. It's not the desk job that's the problem. It's the routine. The more routine that you have in your life, the more you're going to wear down. And it's a fact.
I think it's also a big thing with the repetitive run-of-the-mill calls.
Yeah.
You know what to expect.
Exactly.
So it's a lot easier to have all of your outside infinite number of variables that life, your home life, past calls. It's a lot easier to let things get to you because you are not having that tunnel vision, priority patient that you need to focus your entire attention on.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to be distracted.
Yeah.
Okay.
The most zeroed in, I think the most zeroed that I've ever been on the job, I can track down to 3 calls. My first was a 2-month-old, and I was with her at this time. We were partners. It was an RSV 2-month-old. So
With
a
a
2-month-old,
45-minute transport.
45-minute transport. So this is a child, 2 months old, infant, not breathing. Like
Barely.
I was barely breathing. Like I took lung sounds and it sounded like a bong. He had so much water and fluid built up in his lungs.
Oh my God.
And the thing with a 2-month-old too, they're a baby. They don't know what's going on. They don't know what's good for them.
They're scared.
They're not going to keep an oxygen mask on.
No.
Like an adult, with the nasal cannula going in your nose, with the mask, non-rebreather.
They don't tolerate it.
They're not going to keep that on. They don't know what's going on. All they know is that they can't breathe and they're fighting everything around them because they're scared. They don't know what's going on.
Exactly.
They're not a fully oriented, functional person.
Yeah. And the thing about kids is adults will crash in a nice slow arc. You know, you'll kind of, I'm on my way out. Okay, I'm starting to slip. Okay, you need to do CPR. With kids, it's I'm fine, I'm dead.
Kids will overcompensate
fast. And
because they don't know.
Scary fast.
Damn.
I spent that whole transport basically alternating from one hand on his pulse, which you take on the brachial artery, which is on the inside of your bicep.
My favorite artery.
Huh?
My favorite artery.
Right? Yeah, that's the one.
It's a good one.
I bruise it all the time. It sucks.
Yeah. On your brachial artery, the inside of your bicep, I had one hand there. I had one hand on his chest, making sure he was breathing. I was alternating between that and suctioning phlegm out of his throat.
Plus, kids, they're very intermittent. They're not going to have a steady breathing rate.
Nope.
Not when they're sick. It's going to be fast, like really, really, really slow.
Yeah. And I didn't tell you this because you were driving, and I didn't want to freak you out.
I mean, I was driving lights and sirens for 45 minutes.
Yeah. We also have, the transit vans have a governor on the speed limit, so we can only go 75.
Oh, yeah.
So, which is more than fast enough 95% of the time. But there was a few times I felt his pulse fade. Like you're feeling a pulse and you can feel that solid thump, 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 thump.
It's the difference.
For a kid, it's a thump, 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 thump. But I felt that like
kids' heart rates are a little faster.
Thump, 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 thump. Like I would feel.
Oh my goodness.
Fucking, I would be like, oh shit. Okay, well, all right. I can't do anything about this. So,
damn.
That That was a
Plus,
lot.
when your heart is overcompensating, it's going to take care of your most vital organs and processes first.
Absolutely.
You're not going to get a pedal pulse in your
Nope.
foot. Your legs are they're starting to fade. They're going to focus on your heart and your brain.
Yep.
Those are the most important to
Mhm.
keep you alive.
Mhm.
So you're not going to feel the radial as
Mhm.
strong, which is your wrist.
That's the wrist, yeah.
Yeah, your brachial is the inside of your arm. That's more likely, but when they're desatting like that, it's carotid. It's the neck.
Carotid, yeah.
It's right by the heart.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the biggest. That's when they're teaching combat strikes with sharp objects.
Yeah.
Aim for the neck.
Put it in
Or
there.
you know,
Yeah.
CPR.
CPR.
You go for the carotid. You don't go for an extremity.
No, you test CPR pulse on the carotid.
That's where it's going to be the strongest.
Yep.
The other ones are going to fade first.
Yep.
You don't want to do CPR if you have a faint pulse.
Nope. The second one that comes to mind immediately was a pretty normal guy, middle-aged. He tripped, fell, hit his head. Simple. I was on CCT at this time. So I'm ALS qualified like she is, where she's the EMT on a nurse car. I'm just not there yet.
He's just waiting for a shift
I'm
to
waiting
open.
for a shift to open up. So I was on a CCT car at this time. We had a patient. He was walking, he was talking, joking, laughing. Good guy. Great. Middle of transport, out of nowhere, his heart stops. Like, slows down to like 20 beats per minute. And that was, my nurse popped up, said, lights and sirens now. And that was it.
Normal heart rate for adults is usually 70 to 100-ish.
You drop below 40, I think it is. And
Bad.
you're in big fucking trouble.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, he dropped.
You're not pumping the blood to your organs.
Oh my goodness.
His heart rate dropped. My nurse couldn't do anything.
They're
Nothing
one
that he was doing
person.
was working. And his daughter was in the back just sobbing.
Because we will take family members.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
They'll ride along. So you're doing this in front of their
Oh
family.
my god.
One person
Yeah.
on a
just
road,
thinking about the stress of that.
filling
is-
all of the potholes.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
If you think about how a truck is designed, we're on top of the back wheel chassis. You
Mhm.
feel everything. You feel every
Every
turn.
single
You
bump.
feel every bump, every speed bump.
That's why you don't operate.
This
Yeah.
is
I see.
we don't
Yeah.
have an OR on wheels.
Mm-mm.
Have an OR.
It's an ICU. It's not an OR.
Damn.
It's a stretcher. It's a hospital bed. It's not an
It's not even a
operating
hospital
table.
bed.
No, it's not. But
A stretcher is built for
comparatively
CPR.
speaking,
It's not built for comfort.
they're not
It is
comfortable.
hard. I have slept on stretchers. It's hard.
I'll tell you what.
It's
That's not
not
the
nice.
perfect bed for me because I sleep great on the floor. Yeah.
Dude,
Just make my life harder. I'll go right to
Yeah,
sleep.
you can
Very,
crank
very
your head up
firm.
just a little bit. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
You can
definitely.
sleep on a hard platform. Yeah, you're solid.
You know what? Maybe I think about a career choice.
Yeah, we can get there. I think the third call that has been the most impactful for me wasn't necessarily a scary call.
Mm.
It wasn't traumatic. It was run of the mill. But it was impactful because my patient was very normal. He was a middle-aged guy. He was getting retirement. He was, he had a...
That's middle aged.
It technically...
I gotta get retired.
You know,
Well, when we deal with a lot of 80, 90-year-olds,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, middle-aged pretty much goes from like
40 to 60.
40 to 60.
for the demographic you
It's
deal with
about-
right now.
Medically.
Okay.
So he had a brain lesion that was from
Which
is?
metastasized cancer. So it's a tear in the brain, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, it's basically he had a cyst or some sort of damage to his brain that was caused by cancer that had metastasized, which means it spread from his liver, I believe. So he had a form of cancer, and it spread. It went to his brain, and it broke something. If I dumb it down as much as I can.
I think that's perfect. Yeah.
And so basically, what my partner didn't realize as he was driving is that like this guy is probably going to die within the next 48 hours if he doesn't have the proper care. We were taking him to proper care, so he should be okay. But It was one of those calls where I knew something my patient didn't. And talking to the guy, he was, we talked about his life, we talked about his career, we talked about his family, we talked about his goals after retirement.
Which you had a lot in common with.
We did, yeah.
And those are the kind of calls that I was saying that really hit home. The ones that you can relate to the person.
And he was, he was smiling, he was laughing, he was joking. I was asking him about, so what does it feel like, where you're at right now? It's like, what are you feeling right now? And he's talking about, so picture yourself, for the listener, picture yourself in your family room, in your bathroom, in your bedroom, wherever you are right now. You get up. I need water. Okay, I'm going to go get a drink of water. You get up. You reach for the doorknob. It's not there. You feel around. Oh, there's the door. Whoa, okay. That's in a different spot than I remember. You walk outside. You go to turn down your hallway and you bump into the wall. It's like you're watching your life happen through a TV screen that you don't really have control over.
But it's glitching.
Your muscle remembers what's happening, but it's glitching. You don't have everything with you. It's a fog. Every thought that you have, it doesn't come to you instantly. It's
and that's what altered brain can do.
Yeah.
That really puts in perspective what it's like to have I think it's drug-induced psychosis, where you have people who are doing meth and stuff like that, freaking out. You see people, they call it just tweaking out on the streets, but like I feel really upset and I get sad when I see somebody having a bad trip. Like I watched somebody dive down a fucking escalator steps, man. Like I'm not gonna say where I worked in, but they dive down escalator steps.
Your brain's working faster.
Yeah,
than
how
your
much
body.
you're gonna bleed when you fucking hit escalator step 1. First
more
2,
than you think.
That shit hurts. Step 3, he dove. Like he was diving into a swimming pool, but he was doing a belly flop.
Ooh.
Laying on everything. It was gushing blood everywhere. And then he like sprinted, like hell was chasing him itself. Hell itself. Like the most scary clown possible. Scream, Blair Witch, Book of Shadow, whatever you can think of.
That's your fight or flight.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was scary.
Hallucinations, they sound like it's kind of there, it's kind of not to people who don't experience them. Talking to my patients, I have never heard somebody talk about something more real.
Yeah.
They don't think there's a person in the room with you. They know it. They're watching that person move, walk, breathe, blink, everything.
Yeah.
And talking to this guy, he was like, yeah, it was the craziest thing. I just woke up one morning. I just wasn't there. It was like I was there, but I wasn't. I was living my life through a TV screen. There was
playing a
nothing
video
but
game.
a fog. It was a video game. Imagine your life was GTA and somebody else had the controls.
So it's like so I've had a lot of experience in life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say when I did it, but I have been hypnotized.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it felt like. And also I can kind of put it similarly to like DMT.
Yeah.
Or an out of body experience with mushrooms.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's coming from my perspective, from the perspective of other people who I've had friends who have experimented with other ways other than narcotics and other than things given to them by doctors to help with PTSD, with anxiety, stress, stuff like that. They tried, and there's great studies in Colorado, but I don't want to go off on a tangent about it.
Yeah.
But anybody listening, that sounds like DMT and mushrooms for me personally.
It's like you're playing a new video game. Like you kind of know the general aspect of how to play, but you have no idea what the controls are.
Mm-hmm. You want to go right, you turn left.
Damn.
Like your brain just doesn't work the same way. And if you've lived that way, if you've lived a life where you're used to having a set number of controls, picture you've played a video game for 15 years and somebody goes in and changes your control scheme.
Your phone gets a new update. Everything's different.
It's absolutely terrifying for someone else to go through that experience.
So, something I was actually talking with my coworkers about this last night. Critical calls, some you'll take home, some you won't. Patients you relate to, some you'll take home, some you won't.
Or you'll get flashbacks.
You'll wake up. You'll have dreams about them.
Or you wonder, hey, how'd they do?
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be something that sticks with you for a while. To me, the things that have come home the most was, back in, was it October, November, something like that. We had all those RSV kids.
Yep. The
Um,
beginning, it's that time of the year where
yeah.
everyone gets sick. RSV is huge.
RSV is big in the pediatric population.
So RSV,
Yeah.
respiratory,
Something virus.
something virus.
I
Yeah,
don't know exactly what it stands for. We just get the dispatch.
like the flu, but worse.
Yeah, basically.
And it's
COVID light,
mostly
essentially.
seen in infants, very young kids.
Oh,
Yeah.
now I know
Because
RSV
it's a
is.
big thing.
Yes, I've heard about
It's
it.
harder
Yeah.
for them to fight.
There was a good, probably 2 to 3 week period. No, it was longer than that. It was like 6 weeks, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a while.
Where we were getting a pediatric every other week, and
Every other shift,
I
honestly.
could not sleep without hearing babies crying in the back of my ambulance. It was a daily occurrence trying to fall asleep and just hearing the sound of babies crying. Whenever I drive now, if I don't have the radio on, I hear sirens.
Mm.
And I'm like checking my mirrors, like, where's the siren coming from? Oh shit, it's in my head.
It's something else that we also talk about. We joke about a lot with coworkers is crying baby. It's a good baby. It's a healthy baby.
It is.
We want to hear babies cry.
Yes.
If you're crying,
It
you're breathing.
hurts, and obviously no one wants to listen to the crying, but it's a good sign. It means they have an airway.
Yeah.
They're breathing.
Yep.
You want to hear that. It's good.
Yeah, and your DNA, but it won't stop your DNA from being like,
You're
listen, you want to be a dad one day.
Yeah.
You better come and hold that baby. Look,
Yeah,
Exactly.
your blood's still boiling. You want it
Yeah.
is your genetic response. You want to soothe that baby.
That RSV kid that I just talked about, the 2-month-old, he would not cry. He would try to cry.
But he can breathe.
It would be a start of a cry. It would be a yeah.
Oh my god.
It was like if you were blowing bubbles. I watched bubbles come out. Yeah. So those are the calls that stick with you. The ones when you can't do anything. The calls when you relate to your patients. The calls when no matter how hard you try, they still die on you. Those are the ones that come home.
Yeah.
Everything else kind of falls into the fog. As much as it sucks to say, because it's like, oh, do you not care about your patients? No, I care about every single one of my patients.
They come up, but they don't stay up
They don't
as
stay up.
much.
Yeah.
That sounds like the quote from the Guardian, the movie, and it's one of my favorite movies. And I just got overwhelming sense of full circle and chills when you said that, because listening to that movie breaks my freaking heart, but it also reminds me of how there are people out there that have this idea, right? This beautiful thought that we can help other people.
Mm-hmm.
And fucking Fish asked the instructor, Senior Chief Randall, what was your number?
Mm-hmm.
What was your number? How many did you really say? They call him with a legend or whatever, right? What was your real number?
Don't
And
keep track.
he said a number, and he said, "Those is the people I lost.
Yeah.
It's only the number that matters, Jake." And I was like,
Damn straight.
oh
Yup.
Yeah.
oh shit. It's a full circle moment, right? Because these certain things hit different to certain people.
Mm-hmm.
I personally do not remember all the successful things I've done in the military at all. Not like I was, I got told often that I was chasing accolades and I was chasing high fives or what. I can't remember what they said. They were being assholes.
Oh yeah.
And I don't remember any of the moments until I see a picture of them of me doing good things. I just remember every single part where I fucked up.
Yep.
And somebody else paid for it.
Yep.
And I was responsible for that.
Mm-hmm.
Or every moment where I wasn't able to help somebody.
Yeah.
I think it's essential to have a selfless attitude when you walk into caring for others, but also
Every time.
to be self-aware
Mm-hmm.
and self-focused, like you mentioned. There's so much that goes into how we help other people. We cannot help each other until we put on our own oxygen mask on the airplane.
Absolutely.
Or from my personal experience, make sure the fucking stop switch and the unit's locked out and tagged out.
Yeah.
So someone else doesn't roll you up an escalator and you
Yeah.
die. Because it'll happen.
Yeah.
I think it's essential to also talk with the next generation of people going into be an EMT.
Mm-hmm.
What is one thing, Miss Maghan, first, that you would say to somebody who is just thinking about, they really want to do this EMT thing, that they want to make a difference in life? what is the first thing you would say to them? Or things with S.
Reasons to get into it. You need a good reason. It can't just be I don't know what else to do. You want to get into it because you want to make a difference.
It's not the military.
Yeah. But the biggest catch with that is, I think that's the most common reason of getting into first response is you want to make a difference. You want to help people. But the flip side of that coin is, what are you going to do yourself of when you can't do anything?
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to process that? How are you going to get to work the next shift? Are you going to still keep going? Are you going to be able to get through that? You're not going to be able to just process that in a few minutes. That's going to stick with you. Months, years, lifetime. It's not a matter of if, it's when. And how many times. Is that something that you can shoulder? You need to, yes, you want to make a difference. You want to be the good in the world and help people around you. You want to give back to your community. But what about when you can't? That's what's hardest. Can you shoulder that? And if you can't, find a way to do that, because we need these people in the world.
Yeah.
We need help
Volunteer
to give
to
back
take
to our
pictures.
community. Yeah. Volunteer, get the experience, see if it's something that you can do. It doesn't hurt. You don't have to do it forever. Do it for a while. See if it's something that you can find the good in, because there's way too much bad in the world. Be the good. You want to be that good? Do it. Find a way to keep doing it.
Don't end up a statistic.
And that's the name of it, the game really, is how long can you hold on to this electric fence?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You don't want to end up as a statistic.
Yes.
You don't want your friends to have to clean out your apartment because you couldn't handle it.
100%. 100%, man.
It's a
Take care of
statistic for a
yourself.
reason.
I definitely resonate with that.
Mhm.
Jack, what is one thing you would say to somebody who's thinking about getting into being an EMT?
How much are you willing to give to help people who don't know you're giving anything?
Because like you said, they were just, when you show up on scene, now it just became real to them.
It became
Before it was like, okay, just act, inexperience, confusion.
Yep.
Hopefully you're doing the right thing. Call 911. Aid shows up.
Yeah.
Bam. Oh fuck, it's real.
Oh shit, it's real. And not even that. To the demented old lady who doesn't know who you are,
They're going to
where
fight you.
she's going, she's going to fight you. Are you willing to care for that person just as much as you cared for that kid you had in the back of your ambulance? Just as much as you had for that overdose patient? Are you willing to give selflessly to people who don't know you're giving anything?
We are not there to judge our patients. We're here to help them.
The second we put that badge, that EMT patch on our shoulders, we have given up the right to judge, given up the right to decide. We've given up the right to have any sort of personal feelings about anything. The only thing that matters is that patient. I'm Mexican. I will care for a white supremacist. I will care for a racist. I will care for anybody who comes onto my stretcher, because it does not matter who you are my patient. And I will give you the utmost treatment that I possibly can provide. And if you're not willing to do that, you need to find something else.
I love you for that, man.
I love you too, bro.
Oh, no. Oh boy, there's the waterworks, man. I gotta say, I think it's so important, something you mentioned there. Never having that fucking glass get empty when it comes to caring for other people, because I hate fucking white supremacists.
But also don't let it overflow.
Absolutely.
And also don't let it overflow too,
100%.
right? That's an essential, I would say. Not even, I wouldn't even say essential. That's like a fucking, like, borderline, the backbone of life, right?
That's just life.
You can't overpour.
But it's just a matter of, that's life, but can you add EMS to that?
Yeah.
Can you add more waves?
If you can't,
If you can't handle that ebb and flow.
You need to know, anybody who's looking into getting this field but thinks that, maybe I can't handle that, don't beat yourself up. It's okay.
It's not for everybody,
It's not
and
for
that's
everybody.
okay.
And it's 100% okay. There are 1,000 things out there that need to be done that don't require service.
We'd rather you make it through life and be
Exactly.
happy than to struggle day to day surviving because it's just too much. Not
Yeah.
everyone can go through it, and not everyone needs to. It's okay.
100%. I had a friend of mine go FMF a couple years ago, which is pretty much the Navy's version of going out deploying with Marines and being their medic, right?
Yeah.
So the
Green side medics.
the Marines don't have medics, right?
Yeah.
So they take a corpsman,
Yeah, green side.
and they're called Doc usually, and they get
Yeah.
deployed. He
Don't
came
fuck with
back.
Doc.
Came back all just full of experiences. I wouldn't say all fucked up,
Mhm.
full of experiences, and unfortunately, last year he took his own life. And I think about
I'm sorry to hear that.
the fatigue. I appreciate it, brother. I think about the fatigue, right? The personal fatigue that we take on as individuals in life who want to help just one more person.
Mhm.
And what are things that we do to help ourselves? And one of my favorite things that was told to me by my wife is you have to just remember to breathe
Mhm.
in moments where, like, holy shit, like everything could be going wrong, I'm freaking out, like your mind's spinning a million miles an hour,
Mhm.
your hands are shaking, you're freaking out, like what do I do next? I tried everything's fucking failing, I'm fucking failing.
Mhm.
Well, what do you do in a panic attack?
Just breathe.
Absolutely.
You focus on your breathing, things you can see, touch, smell, all those things.
100%.
Get down to your senses.
Get down to the senses and kind of just resync up with life.
You gotta ground yourself.
Strip it down.
Grounding. What I know that my personal form of grounding, I just want to put out some ideas for other people listening for grounding in life. One of my favorite ways to ground is shooting.
Yeah.
I'm focusing on just one thing.
Mhm.
I'm throwing a piece of metal at a piece of metal
Mhm.
or at a target.
Yep.
And it hits a target, and I'm not focused on anything else.
Mhm.
Singular focus for me is huge. So I love to investigate rabbit holes of working for hours on podcasting or working on escalators for hours.
Yep.
I just focus on one thing. What's one way of that self focus that you do, Miss Megan?
Well, like I said earlier, it's getting out into the mountains, nature,
Mhm.
because it's a lot more calming. There's less hustle and bustle of life. Everything slows down when you get away from that.
Escapism.
Yes. And it helps ground you quite literally because you're out in nature. You're with the dirt. You're with the air, just fresh air. You have the wind. You have, if you're by a river, just listening to the waves or the flow against rocks, just listening to that. And it just calms you down and you get a better grounding, and it just centers your focus on life. Life is unforgiving, but it's beautiful. Get that perspective and find a nice view.
Mm-hmm. Damn straight.
What about you? What are your ways of grounding?
I like to cook. Cooking is a big one for me because if I don't pay attention, someone's gonna catch on fire, and I have to call the fire department. It's embarrassing. I like to cook. I like to fight consensually. Obviously, I like to shake hands with somebody and roll
Mutual
around on
combat.
that. Mutual combat. Dry fire shooting, stuff like that. Fitness is another one. When you're focused on, especially isolation movements, when you're focused on just what am I doing for the next 3 seconds? Push, squeeze, let it off. It is a meditation.
That's just kind of how I feel about music.
Same thing, yeah. You're focusing on the drum beat. You're focusing on the lyrics. You're focusing on
The beat drops.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just feeling those.
Exactly.
Excellent.
Taking a minute and just being 100% present in the right now. Not 5 seconds in front of you, not 5 seconds behind you, not 5 years, 10 years behind you. You're focusing on right now. If you can find a way to put yourself in the moment for even 30 seconds, it is monumental in keeping you stable under pressure.
Well, I love that. Well, I definitely appreciate your insight. I appreciate you sharing some deeply personal experiences that you both have had. I would never ask more of our first responders, but I really do appreciate the things that you've said. I appreciate the mental fortitude and the time it takes to get to a point where you can talk about it, because we have to process things, right? So thank you so much for that, and I definitely do appreciate both of you. sharing your experience with us, with me personally, and with the world as well.
You're very welcome.
Yeah,
Brother.
thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you to all of my amazing listeners.
Stay
I love you.
posted.
I love you all so much. I cannot get over the fact of the conversations that we have. Make sure to head over to the Facebook page and let's keep these conversations going. Are you thinking about being EMT? I have 2 individuals who might be able to help you find some resources for how to mentally harden or mentally prepare or physically prepare, or just with basic experience, like how to set up a ride along and stuff like that. So let's get you connected as well. And I hope you all have a lovely evening. Special shout out to my listener support group. Thank you for keeping the podcast running. Much love, y'all. And bye-bye.